All right, folks, welcome back into another edition of the High School Huddle, your one-stop shop for everything and all things Section 5 sports. I'm AJ Feldman. He's Carl Jones. And Carl, we have finally done it. We have made it through the winter months. The winter sports season is over, save for some Federation championships. And Carl, we made it. I think that's all we can say.
We made it. And man, the kids, man, they gave us a treat this year, didn't they? I mean, all the sports, from track to the ice to the court. No matter the sport, the kids brought it. They had fun out there, made our jobs much easier, much more fun to do. I had fun, obviously, culminating with this past weekend in Albany with the Section 5 teams, putting on a show, boys and girls. It was a fun season for sure to cover. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, we don't have a ton of perspective, but there was a lot of success here in Section 5. Obviously, we're going to get into the basketball in just a little bit. We had some hockey teams going far. On the sports we don't, focus too much of attention on. We had a lot of success as well. Some bowling state championships, some wrestlers winning it all. We had skiers doing some great things. We had track and field, like you mentioned. Competitive cheerleading. We had winning state titles, national titles. I saw some teams bring home some stuff, and we're going to get to that in just a little bit with our winter sports recap awards show that we do, just a brief little wrapping a bow on the winter sports season. But before we get into that, while I was enjoying myself in sunny Arizona with a phenomenal concert by Miss Taylor Swift, Carl Jones was manning down the fort, both with the podcast last week, as he saw I did a great job taking care of that for us, presenting the interview I did, and also manning the fort with our state champions, our state basketball Final Four in Troy, Albany area, getting it done. We brought home 4 state championships this weekend. We're going to start with the AA boys, where the Victor boys basketball team took it home with 2 convincing wins in the state Final Four, 56-54 against Brentwood in the semifinals, and then the championship game, a 56-38 victory over North Rockland. Griffin Hopkins and Garrett Clark leading the way in that championship game with 15 and 12 points respectively. And man, Carl, we like to pat ourselves on the back when we're right. We gotta call ourselves out when we're wrong, because man, we said throughout the entire season that AA boys was going to be competitive. It was really fun. We had a lot of great players, a lot of great teams. But from the word go, we never really thought that we would find a team that could go on a deep run to the state championship, not only win a state title, but convincingly. They won both of their semifinal games by at least 15 points, and that's what the Victor Blue Devils did.
I mean, they're a well-balanced team. They give it to you however you want it. I mean, they play so many different styles in this tournament. I mean, I know they play a Niagara Falls team who like to get up and down the floor. Victor said, y'all want to run track? We can do that too. They got down to Albany in the state tournament, and they played a more methodical style and got it done in that way. An impressive team. I mean, I know you talk about Garrett Hopkins leading the way with 15, but then you had Garrett Clare right behind them, Nick Leonard right behind them, AJ Query right behind them. I mean, they are just such a well-balanced team. Not one player, and I guess that's probably why, they got overlooked for a lot of part of the season. Obviously, the previous year's postseason success is its own thing, but focusing on this year, they didn't have that quote-unquote superstar, but that's ended up being the best thing that could have happened for them. They got so many players who on any given night can you say, give them the ball and let them rock. And I know Griffin Hopkins did it in the sectional, in the Far West Regional, where he had 11 in the fourth, and then Nick Leonard closed some games out for them. Blue Devils, fantastic team, great group of kids to talk to. Tyler Roberts is a good head coach as well, fun to talk to as well. Shout out to the Blue Devils, man. Basketball school now. I love to see that.
And especially, you mentioned, we've talked all along about their balance and their many different ways to win, like you just said, especially in a state Final Four where, from what I gathered, the shots were not falling. We had the, teams are used to playing in these gyms. They go to this big, stadium. It's very far away. That's what I was hearing, that, teams just were not dropping shots. So for Victor to not only win it all, but to never really be in doubt in any of those games, hats off to the Blue Devils.
For sure. And then in Class A, right behind them, you got the Irondequoit Eagles. They unfortunately came up short in their state title game against Tappan Zee. Really good team. Once again, another low-scoring game, 49-36. Chris Carden send-off. Xavier Gersandana with 18.7 rebounds. This game turned when their star player, Ryan Heath, went out in the third and foul trouble, and Tappan Zee went on a run. Irondequoit could not buy a bucket. Just tough way. And I mean, sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles in these types of games. Spoke to Chris Carter after the game, and one of the themes that this team had with him the entire year, they obviously knew he was a fantastic coach, legend here in Section 5. But the thing that they loved the most was how much of a prowess he had off the court and how important he viewed that part of his job. And after the game, their theme all year long was unfinished. And he told me flat out, he was like, hey, this basketball thing is going to stop one way or another. I can't wait to see what you guys do next in life. That's the unfinished part of this job. So the fact that he kept perspective in that moment, just 10 minutes after they came up short in their state title game, kind of just put the bow on top of his career and just how much a professional he was, and he will be missed here in Section 5.
Yeah, you have your final season. You get all the way to the state championship game, the final game of the season. Obviously, it doesn't end up the way you want it. And I think you mentioned the foul trouble. That seemed to be a big theme for certainly the games that I covered throughout this state tournament, these regionals, these semifinals, just foul trouble. Because, when you're in this playoff environment, you're basically running, not many teams are running a deep bench. You're running 6, 7, some teams run 5-man rotation, 5-player rotations. You get in foul trouble. It's really tough to bounce back from that when the stakes are so thin. So, congratulations to Irondequoit for a great season. We've had a great time watching these guys all season long. They were a really fun team to watch. They put on a lot of great shows throughout the season. And, just one game too short there.
Yeah, and then speaking of coming short, Newark also did as well in the state semifinal to a really, really dominant West Hill team that went on to win the state title out of the Syracuse area, I believe. Final score 63-36. Kellen Foster led the way for the Reds with 10 points. Close game at the half. It was 27-22 at the break, but it's a game of runs in basketball. It's a make or miss game, and Newark, unfortunately, just couldn't get enough to drop in that second half. So once again, fantastic season for them, coming up short, no small feat in that whatsoever. No Class C representative, but Class D. Who would have guessed it? I don't know. The Avoca Prattsburgh, the fact that they went back-to-back like, Jordan in 96, 97. I wasn't able to watch the game. I didn't stay for Sunday. That team, when you watch them on NFHS Network, they get up and down the court. I feel like they practice with the track team. I don't know if I need someone to confirm this for me, because they run up and down the court way too fast. Hayden Abbott led the way with 32 points, 17-4 run into the break, which kind of like put the game out of reach. Third Section 5 team to ever go back-to-back, so they put themselves in rare air with that feat. Just shout out to them, 70-48 win over Chapel Field.
Yeah, I do just want to correct you there. They do not play in Class D. They play in Class AP, because at this point, it's just Avoca Prattsburgh world, and we're just all living in it. That is just an impressive run. Not only, they bring guys back. Hayden Abbott, 32 points in that state championship game. McCoy Putnam, 10 assists. Hayden Abbott, he nearly outscored the entire team. I mean, you give him a couple extra more minutes, you let him play in the fourth quarter probably. He's probably blowing out the team by himself. There's really not much more you can say in that, it's just ever since these two schools have merged, it has been a dynastic run for them. And there's really just nothing else you could say, Carl.
I mean, let the resume speak for itself. Just shout out to AP and the fantastic 2-year run that they're on at this point. And then over to the girls slate, a couple more state champs with these games actually ended up being phenomenal as well. We'll start with Class AA, Schroeder, Lady Warriors, the Mariah Watkins, Bria Watkins. Everyone else on that team is phenomenal. I just don't want to limit it to those two. Shout out to them. 49-41 win over White Plains. That game was contested throughout, but they have the Watkins sisters, and White Plains didn't. That's just kind of like the gist of that I got of that game. Mariah Watkins was our player of the week for her fantastic efforts throughout the weekend that she had down there in Albany. Schroeder, fantastic year. Once again, like we talked about ad nauseum, we knew they would be better this year. We didn't know how would they handle the jump up to Class AA. Young team still, how would they fare? And then they kind of just ran with whatever questions we had and just stamped it at the end of the year. Just a fantastic year for them, and I'm just happy to see them culminate that with a state title.
Yeah, and the thing you have to remember about the Schroeder team, no seniors. They're running it back. They're bringing the entire team back next season. And plus, I believe, I don't know if I've seen this finalized. I think we're expanding. We're adding a class in basketball along with some other teams. So I think Schroeder is not going to be in that biggest class anymore because obviously they were right on the bubble there. So I don't know how anybody keeps up with Schroeder next year. You know, the Watkins sisters, I follow obviously both of them on Twitter. They seem to be getting offers from the entire Northeast lately, and that will only just continue throughout the summer, throughout the AAU season and into next year. So congratulations to them. We can't wait to see what they can pull off next season and, you know, down the line in their futures. In Class A, Canandaigua making it to the state championship game with a 55-42 semifinal victory over Manhasset. And then in the championship game, just a rough start. You know, like we said, the margins are so thin, and they just got kind of run out of the gym in that first quarter against Walter Panis. So they ended up losing 61-51 as Maya Herman did her darndest to get her team back in her game. She finished up with 22 points. Just a gritty effort from Canandaigua all season long, as we talked about on the show last week. This isn't even a team that was at 100% throughout the entire season, so who knows what they would have done if they would have had, you know, some of their key performers in the lineup. But you know, the Braves, they finally get that Class A crown. They finally, you know, get past Mendon, who obviously dropped off this year after winning 6 straight titles, and they make it all the way to the state championship game.
Yeah, I mean, it was open this year. Canandaigua ran with it. For a team that maybe halfway through the season, we didn't know their peak performance, and they showed that and then some. So the Braves, don't hang your hats at all. Fantastic year. And then in Class B, which was the game of the weekend, I want to preface this by saying I missed the most important part of the game.
Yeah, Carl, how much did they pay you to leave the gym there? That's what I want to know.
For real, though. Like, you know what? I actually take credit for like 50% of this. Long story short, let me get to the gist of this. Waterloo wins the Class B championship, their first in school history. But to add some context to my situation, I wanted to grab the Waterloo game and then the two boys AA and A games, but they're not close at all. They're like 50 minutes apart, so I couldn't stay for the entire game of Waterloo. They were down 10 heading into the fourth, and Waterloo faithful can back me up on this. It just didn't look great the first 3 quarters. They couldn't get consistent looks. They only had 29 points through 3 quarters. Fantastic ball club they were up against. And then things changed. They scored 29 points in the first 3 quarters and then scored 29 points in the fourth. Jasmine Lewis, Morinkai Bio, Addison, I mean, just fantastic ball club. They got up and down the floor. I still haven't been able to watch their fourth quarter in its entirety. But from the highlights that I saw, I mean, they just turned up the heat on the defense. Everything was falling in the hoop. And it made sense a little bit because I went to go take a bathroom break as I was on the way out, and I heard roars. I didn't know if it was the other team's parents or if it was Waterloo, but nonetheless, it made sense because by the time I got to Glens Falls for the boys' game, a couple of media guys were like, "Hey, did you hear about Waterloo's comeback?" And I looked at them like, "You talking about like in the second quarter or something? Like, what you talking about? Like, you ain't talking about no, like for the win." And they obviously ended up coming back and winning. Just fantastic effort from that group, never giving up at any point because it looked bleak. I'm not gonna lie to you at some points in that game, but that speaks to the testament of that coaching staff and those ladies on the floor. Also, they made it to the state title last year, redeemed themselves this year. I mean, this is storybook ending for a fantastic team.
Yeah, and this was a Waterloo team that I believe what it was is they were down in the sectional championship game. They were down in their crossover game at the half. They were down half in both of those games. They were down in the Far West Regional game in the half. They were down in the state semifinal game at the half. For all those games, it was a third quarter run that got it done. They were the Steph Curry Warriors. This time it was the fourth quarter closing it out. And that just goes to show a lot about, like you mentioned, A, the coaching staff, B, the senior leadership on that team. Where I guess at that point, when you get to the state championship game, you don't even really need a pep talk in the fourth quarter. They'll be like, "All right, I guess our run's just a little bit late today." Like there's no panic because you've done this over and over and over and over again. So congratulations to Waterloo, a team that we have really talked about the last couple of years, finally able to get it done for a state championship game, and really just, you know, they're going to bring back some talent back next year, but this is certainly the end of an era for the Waterloo Tigers, and what a way for them to go out.
yeah, this was the year for them, and they went out convincingly, and we'll see what they do with the federation. I think this team can make something shake this upcoming weekend as well.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we have the Federation Championships where the New York State Public High School Athletic Association team plays teams from the other three regions. You got your private schools, your teams down in the city. Schroeder is actually not competing in that Federation Championship. They mentioned, I saw an article from a school or a paper I believe out in Long Island. They some spring sports, I think some prior commitments going on. So Schroeder will not be playing in that. However, Victor will be, the Victor boys. Waterloo will be as well. There is no Federation Championship for Class D, so Avoca Prattsburgh, they just get to sit on their giant mighty throne and look down on the masses. So we got that to look forward to coming up this weekend. But as we mentioned before, the winter sports season is basically, for all intents and purposes, in the books. It's time to wrap it up, put a nice little bow on it with our Winter Sports Award Show. We hand out a couple categories to just highlight some of the best and the brightest. And as we have mentioned before on here, there was a lot of success, great players, great teams, great moments. So certainly we could not get to all of them, but we just wanted to highlight a few of the favorites that were either near and dear to our hearts, some teams, some players that we watched personally that we wanted to give some love to as we wrap up our show here. So we're going to start off with our moment of the year, a play, a game, just an event that really will kind of the thing that we will remember the most as we, if we're going to tell our grandkids about Section 5 sports in winter of 2023, this might be the thing that we talk about. So Carl, your moment of the year.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go with the theme. You talked about, events and all that good stuff. I'm going to go with the theme, and the theme I took away from this year is kind of the resurgence of some of the inner city schools with their basketball programs. Obviously, as you guys know, I did a story on Franklin and how they rose back to prominence a little bit this year. Monroe, one of their best seasons in a very long time. East, obviously they're always great, but making it to the sectional final once again. But I think it's twofold. One, obviously everyone wants to win and compete. That's just the name of the game, right? But also it's bigger than ball for some of these schools, especially in these areas where, you need some motivation, some positivity instead of all the negative stuff that you're surrounded with before you even get to school, or when you are in school in some of these cases. So the fact that these schools, these communities got to rally around three really, really, really darn good programs this year, and also Edison Tech, even though they didn't have the year they had in the previous year, what they did in sectionals and upsetting Franklin, I was there at that game. It was joyous, and it was a lot of camaraderie there around that win and around that team. Shamir Freeman, one of the most electrifying players I've seen in my 2 years here in Section 5. It was razzle-dazzle, give it to you however you want it. Fun to watch him play for Franklin. The Thompson twins also as well. Yin and Yang, big man down low. My man Terrence is the big man. Clarence is the shooter from anywhere. Fun to see those three go to work a little bit. Monroe, Jaquan Shears, if you've ever seen him, he has the fastest second jump I've ever seen. And I know that's kind of particular, but if you watch basketball or watch a lot of sports that requires you to jump a little bit, you know exactly what I'm talking about. My man was super duper athletic, led Monroe to a fantastic season this year. They came up short to Sutherland, I believe, in that. I don't know if you were at that overtime game.
Yeah, I was at a double overtime game, yeah.
Yeah, so fantastic year for them as well. And then East coming up short in the sectional final. I was there at Blue Cross Arena. But once again, just when those schools are all doing well, it means something for the community, those schools and those players themselves, because it gives them something to positively look forward to as opposed to some of the challenges that they're facing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, certainly. And anybody who's been, watching the news in Rochester, there's not a lot. The city schools needed some good positive light coming out of them lately, and these schools certainly provided that. And I just want to add on to that. How about the Franklin girls basketball team starting a program back up for the first time in over in a decade? They had a rough campaign. They did not win a game. Some of their games were a little lopsided. But man, you just you see their highlights and things like that. They were fighting. They were wearing their school's colors with pride. I talked to them before the season. They've got players who are taking the bus line after school. An hour and a half. Switching buses, getting there late, and especially for a team that you take a bus an hour and a half to school, and you know what, you're not winning the game. you're not going to win the game. You might not win a game all season. You're doing this because, you love the game. You want to, hang out with your friends. You want to build some community spirit, all of that good stuff. And, just as you mentioned, a really great season for the city schools all around, boys, girls, everywhere around at the city schools.
Yeah, so that's one thing I'll take away from this year, most definitely.
And then for my moment of the year, I'm going to go to the track and field, specifically on the field. My girl, Cameron Cole, jumping 6 feet. And this was a mark that I knew that she had in her mind. She's been gunning at 6 feet. I'd read some stories. She had the Section 5 record. She was #1 of the nation. She took it to another level at the state, the sectional championship game. High jump of 6 feet. You want to talk about a pop? Just the look on her face as she's like quickly leaving that mat, because anybody who's high jumped before, smallest vibration can knock that thing off. But just the look on her face, like to get that done. Starts sprinting around the place, high-fiving, hugging, this, that, and the other. Just a great moment for myself to be able to witness, see the joy, the triumph. And then she follows that up at the state championship, winning the high jump and the long jump state championship, a double state winner. Just a fantastic performance from her. And she's still got the outdoor season left. She is still searching for that state record that she talked about she was gunning for. I'm not going to put any money against her on the outdoor sports season. So I just wanted to pick Cameron Cole and her high jump as the moment of the year, which is still the #1 high jump in the entire country for this year. And I don't think anybody's even gotten 5'10", I believe, if I read that correctly. So by far and away, the best jumper this year in the land, the US of A.
The whole land. I always have a lot of respect for those individual sports, and I know there's relay teams and track as well. But you're the man in the arena. It's just you out there. There's no one else to help you out. You got your teammates to cheer you on a little bit. Coach will tell you, nah, ain't no teammate to come. Hey, I'm tired. You're the one that has to go out there and perform. And she did it in that moment. Had her, like you said, had her mindset on it. Went out there and did it. So just to have that idea and then going out and to execute it. None but respect for Miss Cole in that moment right there.
Plus, in all of these competitions, even the state championship, like she was the state champion before she even walked in the door. Like nobody was close. You can enter, if you guys don't know high jump specifically, you can enter wherever you want. Like if you're just starting out, you can enter in at 4'8", 6", whatever. Try and clear the bar, build up some time. She entered the sectional championship meet past everybody else. Everybody else was done by the time she's like, all right, it's finally time for me to show up. So she doesn't even have teammates to cheer her on. She doesn't have opponents to really go against. She's going against herself. She's going against her score. And that's a tough effort. And she really did the most of it. Congratulations to Cameron Cole on a great season. Can't wait to see she does in the outdoor sports season. Next, we're going to move on to our team of the year. We had, as we just mentioned, we talked about, for 20 minutes on the show, we had a lot of great state champions, a lot of excitement throughout the year. Carl, your team of the year for the winter sports season.
Like you talked about in the beginning, man, you got to call a spade, and admit when you're wrong. And I was so darn wrong about these Victor Blue Devils. Therefore, they are my team of the year. The boys, state championship, first sectional title since 1978. My mama wasn't even in high school at the time. So that goes to show you how long ago that was. First appearance ever in the Final